Questions orales, oral questions, l'honorable député.
The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable, Lotbinière. After 10 years of this Liberal government, and despite a new Prime Minister, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Liberal friends and insiders keep lining their pockets with tens of millions of dollars, while hundreds of thousands of Quebecers have no food to put on the table. Why is the Prime Minister feeding BDC, Via Rail, and EDC execs annual bonuses of over $100,000 instead of feeding families who can no longer afford groceries? What world does the Prime Minister live in, expecting young people to make more sacrifices while he gives millions to the rich? The Honourable Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, happy Halloween, first of all. And there's another celebration coming, and that's Christmas. At Christmas time, people look forward to that. It's been a big year for Canada, so this year in particular, people want to celebrate Christmas. So we're going to table a budget, and Canadians would like our Liberal plan, the Prime Minister's plan, to build a very strong country. They would like that budget to pass. So can my honourable colleague commit today not to be a Grinch and to vote for this budget? The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable, Lotbinière. Well, at Halloween, is the government House Leader going to stop scaring Canadians? What Canadians want is an affordable budget for an affordable life. And it's that government's responsibility to deliver. And I'd like to quote from the Nutritious and Affordable Food Basket's findings in their report. Over the past 3 to 4 years, more and more families supported by Alima have been experiencing severe food insecurity. That's Canada in 2025. Does the Prime Minister realize that young families have nothing left to sacrifice? The Honourable Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, unfortunately, the Conservatives have systematically voted against all our supports for Canadians, which aim precisely to help them get through the month and make ends meet, whether it's assistance for families, dental care, pharmacare, child care. Systematically, everything we've put in place to make life more affordable for Canadians, the Conservatives have voted against.
After 10 years, Liberal insiders and elites never had it so good as the Prime Minister forces young Canadians to make sacrifices. Young Canadians can't afford a home, yet CMHC execs got $30 million in bonuses for helping contribute to the Liberal-made housing crisis. Over 700,000 kids line up at a food bank every month, yet EDC execs get $45 million in bonuses for helping cover Liberal incompetence on COVID benefits. How many more sacrifices do young Canadians have to make so the Prime Minister can keep lining the pockets of his elitist buddies?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House.
Madam Speaker, my honourable friend, well, you know what he's done? Time after time after time after time, the measures that would help Canadian youth, they're against them. Whether it be student loan relief, whether it be the fund or the savings program for first-time home buyers, whether it be creating and building national projects that are going to give opportunities to young people from coast to coast to coast. This member stands in his place and votes against it every single time, Madam Speaker.
Member for Calgary East.
If any of those programs actually work, 700,000 kids wouldn't be lined up at food banks every single month. And incompetence pays in this government. Just look at the Justice Minister. A Liberal-made housing crisis, a Liberal-made cost of living crisis, a Liberal-made food bank crisis. Liberal insiders and elitists get paid to enable Liberal failures. When will the Prime Minister stop rewarding Liberal incompetence and actually give Canadians an affordable budget for an affordable life?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House.
Madam Speaker, it's Halloween, and we certainly want to wish a happy Halloween to all Canadians. There's another big holiday coming up. Canadians would like to have a Christmas, a holiday season in peace. No ads with the Leader of the Opposition, that Grinchy guy, screaming at them through their television screens or their telephone screens, Madam Speaker. Mr. The finance critic on the other side should stand in his place right now and tell Canadians they can be off the hook. We're not going to have an election. We're going to vote for that great Liberal budget.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Sacrifice more. That's the message this Liberal Prime Minister just gave to young Canadians. You know, the young Canadians living through generationally high youth unemployment, young Canadians who have mostly given up hope of ever owning a home.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Liberal insiders get rich. Liberal-appointed executives at BDC are getting, on average, a bonus of $216,000. A young Canadian would be desperate to have that as a salary. So, as the budget approaches, what sacrifices are these young people being asked to make while they get Liberal insiders rich bonuses?
Right on.
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The members opposite claim to be there for youth or to be concerned about youth, and yet at every opportunity when there is a chance to vote for investments and supports for our young people and families, they vote against. They will have another opportunity in this budget to support the tax cut on first-time homebuyers, to support the permanence of the National School Food Program, to support continued investments in early learning and childcare. I hope that they will join us in avoiding a Christmas election by supporting the budget. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
The question actually was about young Canadians and what they're going to be asked to sacrifice, which of course they didn't answer. Young Canadians are going to have to figure that out in the budget, and sacrifice they have. They've sacrificed by not being able to own a home. They've sacrificed by having generationally high youth unemployment. And this Liberal message is, we passed all these things. Things should be better, except they're not.
Yeah.
700,000 children now at a food bank despite their programs. Youth unemployment is the highest it's been in a generation despite their programs. Their programs aren't working, and their economics is driving young people into unemployment.
The Honourable Parliament Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Conservatives claim to care about young people, yet every time a measure comes to support them, they vote against it. They voted against a national housing strategy, the first home savings account, against expanding mortgage criteria, and now they won't commit to voting for cutting the GST. That would save first-time home buyers $50,000. Don't worry, Madam Speaker. Canadians know that Liberals are here to support them, and we hope that the other side can show they're really serious and they care about young people by supporting our budget on November 4th and avoiding a Christmas election. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Gaspésie, Les Îles de la Madeleine, Listagouche. Madam Speaker, it's Halloween and the Liberals are trying to scare people. They're threatening to call an election if their budget isn't passed as is, but they're in a minority. All they have to do to get their budget passed is make a deal with the Bloc, the Conservatives, or the NDP, or anyone. We in the Bloc, we have demands that are in line with what Quebecers want. The Liberals can choose to respond to those needs or find other supporters, but if they're the ones refusing to negotiate with anyone, aren't they the ones acting in bad faith? The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you. What I would point out to the member is that the Bloc, with its 22 members, has demanded $36 billion in additional spending that Canadian taxpayers would have to foot the bill for. But yes, Madam Speaker, we are listening. We are working with all the opposition parties. And yes, we obviously want this budget to pass and to avoid a Christmas election. The question to my colleague is he going to vote against a Christmas election in Quebec, or is he going to support the budget? The Honourable Member for Gaspésie, Les Îles de la Madeleine. Madam Speaker, the Liberals have three choices of supporters for their budget. Of course, we would like them to work with us because our demands address the real needs of Quebecers around health care and seniors' purchasing power. Of course, we'd prefer that they invest in Quebec rather than give fortunes to oil companies or tax breaks to web giants. But that's the Liberals' choice. For now, they're choosing to go it alone. They're not working with anyone. Why are they holding Quebecers hostage with threats of an election at Christmas instead of negotiating? The Honourable Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, as for my leader and my colleague, the Finance Minister, they have shown great openness. It's the leader of the Bloc Québécois who said, without even having heard a single word of what's in the budget, he has taken the position that he'll be voting against the budget. So who's not showing a constructive attitude here? Someone who says, no matter what you do, I'm going to vote against it? Or is it the people who are listening and working with the opposition and trying to get this budget through so that we can avoid a Christmas election? The Honourable Member for Côte-Nord, Kawacha-Wachiamek, Nitasasan. Madam Speaker, the forest industry is at a breaking point. It can no longer bear the costs of the softwood lumber dispute on top of Donald Trump's tariffs. Representatives of businesses, workers, and municipalities were in Ottawa this week. They are demanding that the federal government cover 50% of future countervailing duties to be paid until the end of the dispute, when our companies will be reimbursed. Ultimately, this will cost the federal government nothing. But in the medium term, it would save businesses and jobs. Will Ottawa do its part? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, the federal government is there and always will be to support our lumber industry and our forestry industry. We're very aware that this is a crucial industry in many parts of Quebec and Canada. We will continue to work cooperatively with the provincial governments, including Quebec. We will be there, and we are, and we will be there. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent, Akiwenrak. Madam Speaker, after 10 years of Liberal government, after 10 years of compulsive deficits, the debt has doubled. A deficit is like throwing fuel on the fire of inflation. And unfortunately, we have a government that's saying one thing and doing the opposite. They're telling young people to make sacrifices, but meanwhile, they're spending $20 billion on consultants, much to the delight of the regime's cronies. Can this Prime Minister stop asking young Canadians to make sacrifices and finally table an affordable budget for an affordable life? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, we're all going to see on November 4th what this government's budget is. It's a budget of the 21st century. It will address the very serious issues we're facing now, given what's happening in the U.S. So I sincerely hope, I would like the Conservatives and the Bloc to vote in favor of this budget so we can avoid a very destructive budget, a very destructive election, rather, at Christmas time. The Honourable Member. Madam Speaker, what Canadians and Quebecers would like, and he knows because this is exactly what he did when he was in the provincial government of Quebec, what Canadians want is a balanced budget. This government, over the past 10 years, has pushed 2.2 million people into the food banks. He's part of a government that has caused 700,000 kids to have to resort to food banks. Will this government take responsible action and table an affordable budget for an affordable life? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, the budget that will be tabled on November 4th is a responsible budget, and it's an ambitious one. The time is now. This is a decisive point. We need to take action to support Canada's economy so that our children's future is well protected. Now is the time to take action, and we will be doing so strongly.
Madam Speaker, after 10 years of this government, Liberal elites and insiders have never had it so good. But the Prime Minister told young Canadians they need to sacrifice. While Canadians are lined up at food banks, this Liberal government hired the Prime Minister's buddies to staff his new defence procurement and major projects offices. He's paying them $679,000 and $577,000 salary. Of course, he's paying the woman less. That's his track record. So this at a time when Canadians are struggling to afford to live. Will this Prime Minister stop making young people sacrifice so he can line the pockets of
the Honourable Secretary of State?
Madam Speaker, I know the party opposite has had a bad week and they're focused on their leader, but we're focused on affordability. We're focused on building Canada. Madam Speaker, on November 4th, we are going to come forth with a generational budget that will invest in Canada. We will.
You have order, so I don't have to give the Honourable Member the opportunity to answer from the top. The Honourable Member, the Honourable Secretary of State, 60.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I know the party has had a difficult week with their leader, and they're focused on anything but. But we are focused on affordability and building Canada. On November 4th, we will come forth with a generational budget that will invest in Canada. We will invest in Canadians. We will build this country because we believe in Canada. Thank you.
The honourable member for Sarnia-Lambton-Quijano.
Well, so far they've built a record-smashing 2.2 million food bank visits, and over 700,000 of those are children. Rent has doubled. According to the Canadian Income Survey, 380,000 seniors are living in poverty. They can't afford homes, and they can't even afford food. Some of them are living in their cars. When will this Prime Minister stop using taxpayer dollars to make his rich friends richer and finally give Canadians an affordable budget for an affordable life?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Madam Speaker, we will take no lessons from the Conservatives. Madam Speaker, on November 4th, we're laser focused on delivering a generational budget. We will invest in Canada, we will invest in Canadians, we will invest in infrastructure, defense projects, and housing. Madam Speaker, we believe in Canada. We will build Canada into the strongest economy in the G7. I hope the members opposite will join us and pass our budget and not cause a Christmas election. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Tecumseh-Williamsburg.
Right when this Prime Minister was telling young Canadians they would have to make sacrifices, he was signing off for bonuses for Liberal elites. These taxpayer-funded payouts included $11 million for the fat cats at Via Rail, $30 million for the bureaucrats at Canada Mortgage and Housing, and $60 million for the bankers at the Business Development Bank, all while everyday Canadians struggle to afford the necessities of life. Instead of asking Canadians to sacrifice more, why doesn't the Prime Minister cut off insiders cashing in on Canadians' misery?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We do understand the pressures that Canadians are facing, and at the same time, the Conservative Party offers really nothing new. Our government is empowering young Canadians to build lifelong careers. This is one of the reasons we are fast-tracking the Build Canada Homes program to get homes built, to fast-track major projects, to create tens of thousands of high-paying careers across this country. Those careers are available to young people, and we know that they're at the heart of building Canada strong, building the strongest economy in the G7, and we encourage members opposite to support the budget and avoid a Christmas election.
The Honourable Member for New Tecumseh-Williamsburg.
Madam Speaker, it's impressive the Liberals are actually recognizing Christmas. Canadians are being asked to pull the wagon through the mud while Liberal cronies ride comfortably on top. The government isn't worried about families lining up at food banks. They're too busy lining the pockets of insiders. They're not bothered with cutting home prices. They're too focused on cutting checks to bumbling bureaucrats. They don't care about rising debt and inflationary deficits so long as the money keeps flowing to the Liberal elites. When will this Prime Minister stop using tax dollars to reward his friends?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I see the Conservative misinformation spin cycle just continues and continues, but it never produces a grain of truth. If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth. The true story is that the Conservatives never stand up in this House when it comes time to support youth. They voted against, actively undermined their futures by voting against student loan support, by voting against grants for students. They voted against a national housing strategy many times in this House. They voted against a tax-free savings accounts for youth to help them realize the dream of home ownership. They voted against the National School Food Program.
The Honourable Member for Kenora-Kiwitino.
According to the Liberals' own numbers, they overspent on the bureaucracy at FedNor by 60% of what was planned last year, Madam Speaker. That's $2.7 million spent on themselves that should have been used to support communities across Northern Ontario. Madam Speaker, while people across the country are struggling with housing costs that have doubled and a record 2.2 million people are visiting food banks, the Liberals continue to fund bureaucracy. So, Madam Speaker, when are they finally going to stop their out-of-control spending and deliver an affordable budget for an affordable life?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Madam Speaker, we keep hearing about the Conservatives and their deep concern for youth, but they continue to vote against any project or program that would support the youth of this country. They vote against it all, Madam Speaker. And I'd like, for once, to hear exactly what they would reduce in order to meet their absurd budget demands. Let's have a good budget, an affordable budget on November 4th, and let's have the support of the Conservatives opposite.
The honourable member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. After years of willful blindness, Ottawa is finally taking action against discount truck drivers, but it's far from enough. The federal government said they'd done 100,000 inspections, but in fact, they didn't do 100,000. They said they actually only did 1,000. That's 100 times less. And when we questioned them, they admitted that actually it wasn't even 1,000, it was only 650. The rest were outreach activities. Luckily, ridicule doesn't kill, unlike discount drivers. So when is Ottawa finally going to take this problem seriously? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, our absolute priority is the safety of our roads and drivers. The minister is acting in good faith, and in the budget there will be targeted programs worth $67 million to deal with the problem of non-compliance. The Bloc can vote in favor of that. They can help us pass the budget and avoid a Christmas election. Will they do that? The honourable member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Madam Speaker, if it weren't for the Bloc, nothing would have ever been done. We suggested 10 solutions to the problem of discount drivers. The Liberals are only implementing one of those, and they want us to applaud them. But there's still no federal investigation. They're still allowing foreign workers to incorporate. There's still no data sharing between governments. In short, Ottawa is tackling corporate fraud, and that's great. But the heart of the problem is getting those drivers off our roads. They're dangerous and they don't follow the rules. When will Ottawa finally take action? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, once again, our absolute priority is the safety of our roads and drivers. Budget 2025 provides significant measures to provide for road safety. And once again, the opposition will have a choice. Are you going to vote in favor of better safety on our roads and for our drivers? I certainly hope you will vote in favor.
Langley.
Madam Speaker, on Halloween, we expected ghosts and goblins, not ghoulish government spending. But this Prime Minister told students they need to make more sacrifices, more spooky words from a government that's already drained their wallets. Young Canadians are haunted by high prices, buried under debt, and scared stiff for their futures. Right. The Liberal spending is out of control. It's a fiscal fright fest. Yep. When will this government stop its reckless tricks and finally give Canadians the treat of affordability?
That's right. Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, it's fortunate that next week we will have an affordable budget for Canadians, and we hope that the members opposite will join us in supporting that budget. It will include many ways to invest in young people, in young families, in making homes more affordable, in making food available at schools, and making dental care available, and a number of other things that will support Canadian families. I trust they will support us and avoid a Christmas election. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford South Langley.
Madam Speaker, Canadians have been struggling for a decade. They have got nothing left to give. Canadians are being told to cut back while this Liberal government refuses to cut their own wasteful spending. That's nationwide, right. Food bank visits have hit 2.2 million, including 700,000 children. In my province of BC alone, food bank visits went up 80% since 2019. Wow. Canadians can't afford groceries or basic necessities. They certainly can't afford another Liberal budget.
That's right.
When will this Prime Minister finally deliver an affordable budget for an affordable life?
That's right.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Conservatives claim to care about youth and affordability, but on this side, we're about solutions, not slogans. We're cutting income taxes, cutting GST for first-time home buyers, putting together a national school food program, launching Build Canada Home to increase home affordability. We launched Office of Major Project. Canadians don't live in a pretend world. They know we're here to help them, support them, make life more affordable, and build the strongest economy of the G7. So we hope you can support us and show you really care about youth and affordability on November 4th. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Madam Speaker, manufacturing companies throughout the greater Chaudière-Appalaches region, including Armoire de Cuisine Bernier in Lévis, are being stifled by U.S. export tariffs of 25%. These tariffs will double on January 1st to 50%. Madam Speaker, the United Kingdom is at 10%. The EU and Japan, 15%. Canada's situation is scandalous. Canadian companies cannot continue to eat into their margins indefinitely. Is the Prime Minister, he said he was going to get a deal. Why is he breaking that promise? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, I'd like to remind our colleagues that it is the U.S. that triggered this trade war. One moment. We will find an agreement with the Americans, but not at any cost, not any deal. A bad deal is worse than no deal. Our main focus is to defend Canadian workers, maintain access to the American market, and we will wait as long as it's required till the Americans come back to the table.
For Regina Wascana.
Madam Speaker, an agreement was finally reached last night at the APEC summit in South Korea. Unfortunately, the agreement was between the United States and China to reduce tariffs, but not Canada. This Prime Minister flew to Asia, met with the Chinese president, had a nice photo op, but still no deal. Madam Speaker, in this international game of deal or no deal, why is it always no deal for Canada from this Prime Minister?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to reassure that Canada is on the diplomatic stage every day, both diversifying trade and defending Canadian interests. We will continue to work every day to ensure that Canadian businesses, Canadian citizens, Canadian residents are well protected in everything we do. We will continue to negotiate every trade deal we can. The United States is our biggest trading partner. We're ready to be at that table while we continue to diversify the trade around the world. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Regina Wascana.
Madam Speaker, it's not just Chinese canola tariffs that are punishing Canadian farmers. India has slapped a 30% tariff on Canadian peas and a 10% tariff on lentils. Canada cannot export beef to the United Kingdom, but the UK can and does export beef to Canada. When will this Prime Minister finally stop with the photo ops and finally get a deal for Canadian producers?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, we will always stand up for Canadian farmers, whether they're beef farmers or farmers who grow wheat in our country, and we will make sure that we will get the best deal for them all around the world, and that is the work the Prime Minister is doing. He's been in Asia meeting with various leaders from around the world to make sure that we open new market, new opportunities for Canadians so that we can double our non-US exports over the next decade, and we will do that for Canadian farmers, for Canadian manufacturers, and for Canadian workers.
The Honourable Member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
Madam Speaker, I've seen firsthand the extraordinary work of our Canadian Armed Forces, their courage, their sacrifice, and the quiet toll that their service can take. And I've seen how easily that service can be overlooked in the rhythm of our daily lives, even though Canadians feel such gratitude. Could the Minister of Veteran Affairs update the House on how our Government of Canada is commemorating and recognizing Canada's veterans for their service and dedication?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
I thank my colleague from Port Moody Coquitlam for this question and note the presence on the Hill today of her spouse Gaetan, a 22-year Canadian Air Force veteran. I also thank the member from Kitchener-Conestoga for leading the first poppy flag raising on Parliament Hill this morning. Madam Speaker, the poppy is an enduring symbol of leadership, of loss, and of the responsibility to remember those who have served and sacrificed in uniform. As the Royal Canadian Legion launches the 2025 Poppy campaign, I encourage all Canadians to commemorate and remember the veterans who have served.
Very good. Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Food Bank Canada report a record-smashing 2.2 million visits to the food bank in just 1 month, the most ever. The CEO of Food Bank Canada said she is shocked that people are stopping at the food bank on their way home from work because they can't afford groceries. She said, and I quote, "It's really shocking to see how far people are falling behind every single day," end quote. After a decade of Liberal deficits and inflationary spending, people just can't keep up. When will they realize their inflationary deficits are driving up the cost of food and driving people to the food bank?
Honourable Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think it's important to once again underline the fact that the report that the members opposite cite also lists, inclusive of the Canada Disability Benefit, the Canadian Dental Plan, Early Learning and Childcare, the National School Food Program, the National Housing Strategy, among the many tools and investments that support alleviating poverty in this country, all of which have been voted against or opposed by the members opposite. We will have a budget next week that will continue to invest in Canadians, in young Canadians and families, and we trust they will join us and vote for the budget and avoid a Christmas election. Thank you.
The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
The only people who seem to want a Christmas election is this Liberal government. Canadians don't want Liberals to force a costly election. They want an affordable budget. The Liberal government doesn't seem to get it. We have record Liberal deficits and a record number of people who can't afford food. 2.2 million people lining up at food banks. Over 700,000 of them are children. The more they spend, the more Canadians pay at the grocery store. So, will they present an affordable budget so families can afford to feed themselves?
Great question.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Madam Speaker, it is disheartening to know that Conservatives don't even read the report that they quote in this House. It's obvious because the very report that they're quoting from Food Banks Canada asks our government to move forward with income assistance for people living with a disability. They ask for a dental care plan. They acknowledge the work of addressing the housing supply issues in this country. And they also mention a national school food program, which that party has voted against time and time again in this House. When it comes time to take 400,000 kids out of food bank lineups, what does the opposition say? They say no.
The honourable member for Cambridge.
Madam Speaker, first the Liberals made it unaffordable to feed your kids. Now they want applause for feeding them. Canadians used to line up at the grocery store. Today, they line up by the millions at food banks. Under the Liberals, Canadians are working full-time and eating part-time because paychecks shrink while grocery bills balloon. 82% of Canadian households say they don't have enough food to eat. In college, 82% gets you an A. But for the Prime Minister, 82% of Canadians going hungry means a giant F. When will this Prime Minister stop failing Canadians and allow families to feed their own kids in their homes?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, as I said, Conservatives claim to care about youth and affordability, but on this side, we're about solutions, not slogan, right? You're voting to cut. We're cutting income taxes, reducing GST for first-time home buyer. We're putting forward the National School Food Program. We're putting a number of measures to increase affordability, increasing the supply of home in order to lower rent. We're here for Canadians. Canadians don't live in a pretend world. They know what's going on. They know which party is there for them. That's why they voted for us on April 28th. We hope you can vote for our budget on November 4th. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Windsor, Lakeshore.
Madam Speaker, each month in Canada, there are over 2.2 million visits to food banks. We talk about these numbers every day, and we watch them increase every month. These aren't just numbers, colleagues. These are the people that we serve. Many of them are workers whose paychecks haven't gone up the way grocery prices have. This Liberal government, however, thinks that Canadians should sacrifice even more. When will this Prime Minister give Canadians an affordable budget for an affordable life?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Madam Speaker, we've got good news for the Conservatives. They can help 5.5 million Canadians. Do you know how? They can support us on automatic federal benefits, giving benefits directly to 5.5 million Canadians, those that need it the most. But, Madam Speaker, the party opposite has a choice to make. Will they listen to their Grinch leader and not support our budget and cause a Christmas election? Or will they join with us and pass a generational budget offering hope and affordability to Canadians? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Edmonton Manning.
Madam Speaker, the Edmonton Food Bank is serving more people now than any time in its 43 years history. Requests for food hampers are up 42% in the last 30 months. Food Bank Canada reports record use with 2.2 million visits in a single month. It took decades to hit 1 million and only 6 years under these Liberals to double it to 2 million. Madam Speaker, when will this Prime Minister finally give Canadians an affordable budget for an affordable life?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This feels a little bit disconnected when just last session we saw the opposition vote against a national school food program. But good news, they have a chance to do what's right, to correct their error of the past, and vote to support our budget in just a few days' time to make that program permanent. Will they do that, Madam Speaker, or will they vote for a Christmas election that nobody wants?
The Honourable Member for Portage Lisburn.
The Prime Minister told young Canadians that they need to sacrifice more. Yet, when he ran Brookfield, he did anything but that. He hid money in a Caribbean island to dodge Canadian taxes. Not at a bank, mind you, but through a bike shop in Bermuda. And if this is the kind of sage financial advice that we are meant to follow, I wonder if we expect the owner of that bike shop to be appointed the next Liberal Minister of Finance. So a simple question, Madam Speaker, will the Prime Minister confirm that he is not stashing cash on offshore havens?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, we've got a generational budget coming on November 4th that's going to be building on the successes of the past couple of months, successes that include today announcing billions in new investments in critical minerals, 20 deals with countries across the world. This is just going to build on that, Madam Speaker. This budget is exactly what's needed for this moment. I hope the Conservatives support it and help us avoid a Christmas election that absolutely nobody wants.
The Honourable Member for Portage Lisburn.
Just like the Prime Minister, an avoidance of an answer, because since day one, the Prime Minister has dodged public disclosure of his financial holdings. He's flipped through every excuse in the book, but he's finally running out of pages. This week, 163 Liberal MPs tried to protect their leader from scrutiny, but they failed. Conservatives passed a motion to investigate his corporate connections and potential conflicts. Instead of hiding behind a cloak of secrecy, he should finally come clean. So I will ask again, Madam Speaker, can the Prime Minister confirm he has not a single dollar stashed away in offshore tax havens?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, Canadians are rightly focused on the real issues. We face a dangerous and changing world, one that demands big responses, and you're going to see big responses in the November 4th budget. We've already heard about many of the initiatives that are coming out of it. Madam Speaker, I hope the members opposite will support this budget, avoid a Christmas election, and help Canada lead in the G7.
The Honourable Member for Parkland.
Madam Speaker, media has reported that Brookfield Asset Management, under the guidance of the Prime Minister, stashed money in Bermuda to avoid paying $5.3 billion in taxes between 2021 and 2024. What is it with these Liberal Prime Ministers and their billionaire islands? They just can't resist it. While the Prime Minister tells young Canadians that they need to sacrifice, the Prime Minister dodges the bill himself. We are supposed to be in this together, but it appears that the Prime Minister, in his role as chair of Brookfield, is avoiding paying his fair share of taxes. Can the Prime Minister confirm, does he have any investments in offshore tax havens, yes or no?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, Canadians know that our economy faces significant headwinds due to the trade tensions with the United States, and Canadians knew that, and that's exactly why they voted for this government and a Prime Minister with the economic resume to get us through turbulent times and build a stronger economy. Next week on November 4th, we'll present our first budget as a new government, which will focus on jobs and opportunities, which will focus on growth and productivity, which will make generational investments to unlock new opportunities for youth and all Canadians. The only question is, will Conservatives give...
The Honourable Member for Parkland.
Well, Madam Speaker, this Prime Minister has an economic resume, all right, an economic resume of offshoring tax money to foreign tax havens. Families are cutting back on meals. Young people are waiting to start a family. They're waiting to buy their first family home. Meanwhile, media is reporting that the Prime Minister's company stashed billions in offshore tax havens to avoid paying taxes. We've heard testimony that this Prime Minister's company dodged $5.3 billion in taxes from 2021 to 2024. That's a lot of programs, Madam Speaker. Speaker, again, can the Prime Minister confirm to Canadians that he has no investments in offshore tax havens, yes or no?
Yes. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
So the only thing more frightening this Halloween than the Conservatives' disinformation in this House is a Christmas election, which nobody wants. The Conservatives are proposing to force an election on Canadians at a time when they expect this Parliament to stand together. Our budget on November 4th is going to present a strong path to build a stronger Canada, to unlock opportunities for all Canadians, to boost productivity and growth in this country, and the Conservatives will vote against. They've already said it. They haven't even seen the budget, and they are going to vote against. They're going to force a Christmas election upon Canadians. There's nothing more spooky than that.
Yeah. The Honourable Député de Rivière-des-Mille.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille. Thank you, Madam Speaker. As Budget Day approaches on November 4th, our government remains committed to building an economy where everyone can succeed. Women, girls, and 2 SLGBTQI+ people have been clear. They want to see concrete measures to ensure they have the tools, the resources, and the opportunities they need to be safe, to feel protected, and to thrive. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Women and Gender Equality tell the House how our government is working to deliver on this commitment? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's such a pleasure to say Madam Speaker. I want to thank my colleague who's a real leader when it comes to gender equality. I was with my colleague, the Minister of Finance, my colleague, the Minister for Women and Gender Equality, and my other colleague for Services to Indigenous People, and we were enthusiastically able to announce an investment of $660 million to advance gender equality. We traveled through the entire country. We worked from community organizations. They defend people, and they want predictability, and we will be there for that. The Honourable Member for Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup, Katascomique, Témiscouata. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister promised to negotiate a win with the United States on softwood lumber, but he completely failed. When he came to power, U.S. tariffs were at 14%. Today, they're at 45%. Under this Prime Minister, tariffs have tripled, and our workers are the ones paying the price. In communities such as Saint-Pamphile, Dacoam, Laurent-Versé, and Saint-Just-du-Lac, entire families depend on the forest industry for their livelihood. Madam Speaker, when will the Prime Minister stop betraying our workers, our families, our industries, and our regions? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. I must say, Madam Speaker, that I am astounded by the tone of the colleague's question, because he knows full well that our government is here to support workers in the forestry sector, and we've been doing that for a long time. We'll continue to do that because we know full well that that industry is critical for our rural communities, remote communities in Quebec, in Ontario, in BC, in New Brunswick. It's important to continue our work. We will do that, but we will not just sign off on any old agreement. We want the best deal in the best interest of everyone.
Member for Sudbury East, Manitoulin Nickel Belt.
Madam Speaker, hard-working folks in Northern Ontario are once again facing uncertainty. The Gogama sawmill in my riding has shut down for 2 weeks. When it reopens, it will be reduced to 1 shift. The Prime Minister promised to negotiate a win with the United States. Well, it's no win. It's tariffs tripling to 45%, and it's a broken promise for softwood lumber. Our communities deserve better than empty promises. When will the Prime Minister stop selling out our forestry workers?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Madam Speaker, the forest sector is core to our economy and core to our Canadian identity. My own family has been in the forest industry since long before Canada was a country. We will always stand with forest workers, and my heart goes out to the affected. U.S. tariffs and duties are completely unjustified. We know that. We're working at all levels to address it. In the meantime, we are also diversifying our economy. The Prime Minister is in Asia right now working on deals. We are going to be masters of our own future, Madam Speaker, and we will happily work with members opposite to help support the sector.
The Honourable Member for Vernon, Lake Country, Monastic.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised he would negotiate a win with the United States. He has broken that promise on softwood lumber. When the Prime Minister took office, softwood lumber's tariffs were at 14%. Now they're at 45%. This year in the North Okanagan, hardworking people are being sent home from mills because of this government's failure to secure a softwood lumber agreement. So my question is this: when will this government stop driving resources jobs out of Canada, stop taxing families into poverty, and start trusting Canadians to stand on their own 2 feet again?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to thank the member for asking a very important question. Of course, we are continuously working and making sure that we find new opportunities for our lumber producers. I know that ministers and many members of parliament are going to British Columbia to meet many of those forest lumber producers to ensure that we are creating new opportunities. And that's why, Speaker, we are so focused on ensuring that we double our non-U.S. exports in the next decade. That means building new alliances and new friendships around the world. That is why the Prime Minister is in Asia meeting with leaders to create those opportunities. We'll continue to do that work so that our lumber producers remain the best.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton Mountain.
Speaker, Bill C-3 sets out a balanced, straightforward framework for citizenship. Canadian parents born abroad will be able to pass on their citizenship only if they can prove a substantial connection to Canada before the birth or adoption of their child. This is fair. Would the Parliamentary Secretary for Immigration please share with this House what is at stake if we don't act today to advance Bill C-3?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, from the moment she was elected, that member has committed herself to matters of fundamental justice, and that's exactly what's at stake in Bill C-3. In December of 2023, as colleagues will know, the Ontario Superior Court of Justice ruled that there is an inconsistency in Canadian citizenship law, and so C-3 rectifies that inconsistency. Whereas Canadians who are born here or naturalized here can, of course, pass down their citizenship to their children, that same right is not available to Canadians who are born abroad with children who are also born abroad. I urge colleagues to get behind C-3. I thank the NDP for their support. This is the measure that will improve Canadian citizenship law in conformity with the Charter, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lanark, Frontenac.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if we were to learn that China uses convict labor drawn disproportionately from Indigenous minorities to produce products to be sold commercially by the prison system, we would condemn this and we would ban that product. So what are we supposed to think of a report from the Aboriginal People's Television Network that milk produced at the Joyceville prison farm by inmates paid less than $1 an hour is being sold by Corcan for profit? Canada's correctional investigator says that in his view this represents, quote, a human rights violation. I agree with him and I wonder, why is the government doing this?
The Honourable Secrétaire Parlementaire.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, the programs in correctional services in Canada giving inmates opportunities to learn new skills mean that when they leave jail, they will be able to find work. They will not end up in a cycle where they're back in jail. These are programs that inmates appreciate and the Canadian public does as well.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Madam Speaker, it's alarming to hear the Prime Minister talk about sacrifice in this budget, when year after year his government has sacrificed the safety of Indigenous women and girls, ignoring the crisis of our murdered and disappeared loved ones. Now the Liberals push resource projects despite clear evidence that boomtown man camps fuel gender-based violence. Will this government finally put Indigenous women's safety before corporate profit, or will we be left out of the budget yet again?
Well, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I thank my honourable colleague for the question. We know that Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people continue to face violence at rates that are deeply disproportionate. This reality is rooted in generations of colonial policies and systemic discrimination and underinvestment in Indigenous communities. The calls for justice from the National Inquiry of Missing and Indigenous Women and Girls reminds us that responding to this crisis is not optional. It's a...
Do we have an issue? No, sorry. My apologies. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
This is the responding to the the National Inquiry on Missing and Indigenous Murders of Girls and Women reminds us that responding to this crisis is not optional, it's a human rights obligation. Our government takes this seriously and remains firmly...
And I have to go to the next question. The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wonder if Canadians realize how much many of us as MPs want to be Team Canada. We want to be united, and we know we need to put Canada first. Yet the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board Act requires that we ignore whether Canada's put first when they decide where billions of dollars of our pension get invested. Will this government update the Investment Board Act to make sure Canada comes first?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House.
Madam Speaker, Canada's pension plans, the Maple 8 and others, lead the world not only in securing returns and a prosperous future for our retirees and our pensioners, but lead the world in ethical and above-board investments all over the world, including in Canada. The CPPIB and other pension funds in this country will continue, I'm sure, to take investing in Canada very, very seriously.
And I have the Honourable Member for Longueuil-Charlemagne on a point of order.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to seek unanimous consent from the House to repeat my SO31, as I was right behind the member who was doing the really big cheer for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and unfortunately the noise was too much. So I'd like to know if we could actually, sorry, the Leafs. The Jays. The Jays. Oh my God, Toronto Maple Leafs. So I'd like to seek unanimous consent to repeat it if possible.
Honourable Member have unanimous consent to repeat her SO31. Agreed. So, the Honourable Member for Longueuil.
Madam Speaker, today I pay tribute to a remarkable leader, Jean Mélenchon, outgoing director of the Longueuil Agglomeration Fire Department. After 37 years of service, including 12 as director, Jean's preparing to bring his vast experience and expertise to another fire department. A man of courage, integrity, and humanity, Jean has not only devoted decades to protecting the citizens and property of our region, but he's also inspired generations of firefighters with his commitment to excellence. As a firefighter and director, Jean has helped shape a safer and stronger community. His passion for safety and his sense of duty will remain etched in our memories. The legacy he leaves behind will be felt for years to come. Thank you for everything, Jean, and good luck in your new endeavors.
Oh.